Hello, everyone. My name is Pierre Vinces, and I'm part of the Britannico teacher training team. Today, I feel really excited to present a webinar on English language teaching strategies. Today, we are going to check effective techniques for real learning. And let's start by looking at the following two pictures. I'm sure you're familiar with these two scenarios. In number one, we can see a face-to-face classroom, and in number two, an online environment. I'm confident you've taught in both scenarios. So I'll give you some seconds to look at the pictures and think of these two questions. Can you identify the teachers and the students? How do they feel? Look at the pictures. So in number one, you can see the teacher here. She's concentrated on the laptop. In number two, look at the teacher. Is the camera on and the microphone? Not really, right? So the microphone and the camera are off. And of course, the students are demotivated, they are not paying attention, and they feel a bit bored. So we need to prevent these things from happening in our classrooms. And we need to remember classroom management tips. Let's look at them first, one by one, and you'll notice that they are not complete. For example, the first one says, set and rules from day one. Try to think of a word to complete this tip. Look at the next one. Arrange for collaborative work and interaction. You can look at the picture, at the emoji there, to have an idea. Prepare and give clear. Let's check the next one. Your students work in the classroom. And finally, make your students the of your lessons. All right, so let's check them together. For the first one, we have set routines and rules from day one. Of course, this is something really important because our students need to know how to enter the classroom, how to leave for a moment, when to ask questions, when they have to compare. And of course, there should be routines related to how you start your lesson, for example, or sometimes they have a break, they have to eat things. All right. So it's really important to set them from day one, and you can make use of different tools to help them remember those rules. For instance, big papers around your classroom. Good. And keep in mind that if there is a rule, follow it every time. Our learners need to be trained. Yeah. The second one, arrange seats for collaborative work and interaction. We teach English, and English is a communicative subject. So our students need opportunities to use the language and interact with their classmates. So when you group them, make yourself sure they have someone to work with, to compare, to have a conversation, to complete together. And this is another tip. Group them based on how comfortable they feel with their classmates. Remember, we don't want to expose them. The third one is to prepare and giving clear instructions. Instructions are really important. When we give clear instructions, our activities are successful. So, when it comes to instructions, instructions need to be brief, need to be clear, and you need to include the time and check understanding of instructions. How can you check understanding? By asking questions. Let's imagine your students have to complete a sentence, right? By writing. So what are questions you can ask to check understanding? For example, do you have to work individually? Do you have to work in pairs? Do you speak? Do you write? So checking instructions is really important. Then, when they are working on the activity and you notice instructions perhaps were not clear, don't be afraid and stop the activity and give instructions again. Remember, we teachers give instructions. It is not a good idea to ask our students to read instructions from the board or from the book. We give instructions orally. The next one, monitor your students' work in the classroom. Of course, when they are working individually or in pairs, we need to walk around the classroom or look at them from the corner perhaps or next to your desk, but you need to pay attention to what your students are doing in the classroom. This is important because they can see you are close to them and they can ask you questions. Of course, when you monitor and you walk, you can make some notes of the positive or those aspects that they need to improve to give them feedback after the activity. And finally, make your students the stars of your lessons. The stars, what do you understand by this? It means that your students are the ones who need to speak, who need to complete, who need to write in the classroom. We are there to help them understand and to guide them. Perhaps you've noticed that your students don't feel comfortable when using English and they want to use Spanish. Right. So, in order to make them speak, we need to provide them with useful language. I'm sure, I'm sure you have posters like this in your classrooms. For instance, this is, can I answer? Or this one, what page are we on? You can see the posters here, right? And this is a great idea because our posters need to be colorful, engaging, and you could put them around the classroom so they can see and use the phrases when they need to compare, when they want to participate, or when they want to go to the toilet, right? So it is important to reinforce these useful expressions to make our students use English in the classroom. For example, let's see. Right. For example, how can you reinforce classroom language regularly? You can prepare activities like this. Look at this worksheet. It says, let's complete. How do you, pero in English? Does notebook mean? What are we on? Can I to the toilet, please? I don't. Can help me. If you notice, they have to complete, they have to remember the expressions they've been using in the classroom. So in this way, we train them. But how do you think your students will complete these phrases when comparing their answers? Sometimes I notice that students compare like this. Okay, number one, good, te toca, tú continúas. ¿Cuál es la dos? Right? So they use Spanish. So we need to give them expressions to compare answers to. Simple expressions. For example, what's the answer to number one? What's the answer to number four? It's your turn. Is it correct? Continue with the next one. So when you give them these expressions, they can use them to compare and they are using English. Then when they have to discuss and give personal information, for example, or talk about the things they like or dislike, we need to give them expressions and model them. Let's imagine they have to discuss this question. Do you like living in this city? Do you like living in this city? If you give them time to think and answer, probably they will say, yes, I like it. No extra information. Or no, I don't like it. You see? But if you give them expressions, for example, this one, personally, I love living in my city because there are many parks. In my opinion, Lima is a great city. Or in my opinion, Lima is a terrible city because there is a lot of traffic. So if you give them these expressions and you model them, they have a clear idea of how to use them. So you can use these expressions in your classrooms and prepare them in advance. In this way, you'll feel more confident. I have another question for you. Do you think it's enough to show them the expressions and they understand how to use them? Or is there anything extra we need to practice with them? For example, imagine you show this one. Personally, I love living in Lima because perhaps some students can say personally or personally. So now I know you notice that pronunciation is missing. Pronunciation practice. Good. So include pronunciation, but don't be monotonous. When we think of pronunciation, the first thing that comes to our mind is to listen and repeat, right? So you ask your students to listen and repeat after you. Remember something important about pronunciation. Our students need time to decode the sounds, to understand, to listen. So give them an opportunity to listen, and then you ask them to repeat. First, model the sounds. But choral repetition is a bit monotonous. And when we teach online, could be really messy because it's difficult to listen to everyone in online environments. So here, I want you to think of this. What about including a variety of drilling strategies and go beyond choral repetition? Let's imagine you are working with adjectives to describe personality. So you show the picture, and this is the sentence. Well, in this case, this is a question. Is your sister shy? Is your sister shy? Good. Typical way, listen and repeat after me. Is your sister shy? And students repeat, is your sister shy? But what if you change the words? And you can make use of cards, for example, talkative or brother. Talkative or brother. Of course, you need to model and train your students. For example, listen, is your sister shy? Is your sister shy? Now use talkative. And they'll say, is your sister talkative? Is your sister talkative? And you can practice with other adjectives. Or you can change the person. No more sister, now brother. Is your brother shy? Is your brother shy? And of course, it is a great opportunity to practice short answers. Is your sister shy? Yes, she is. No, she isn't. Is your brother shy? Yes, he is. No, he isn't. This is substitution drilling, right? And this could be a good idea to make our pronunciation practice more engaging. Now, let's look at the next tip. We need to vary the way we ask our students to repeat or practice pronunciation. We mentioned that choral repetition is monotonous. So what if we nominate the students? We mention their names. Okay, Juan, you try. Then it could be done in pairs, Juan and Sandra. And if this is a big classroom, you can work and ask them to repeat rows. No, okay, please, the front, the back. So in this way, you make it more dynamic. And the last tip related to pronunciation, try to give our students opportunities to practice structure. We can say some grammar. Practice structure through pronunciation. For example, what is the adjective that comes to your mind when you look at this picture? Look at the boy and the images around. Right. My brother is sociable. Right? This is the sentence. How can we practice grammar here or structure? We can make use of symbols. For instance, this one. This is another one. I'm sure you notice this is negative and this is question. So class, for example, my brother is sociable. My brother isn't sociable. Now, question. My brother is sociable. Question. Is your brother sociable? Right? And we can also change. So we combine the strategies. Class, my brother is sociable. Now, parents, but my parents aren't sociable. My brother is sociable. Question, best friend. Is your best friend sociable? Of course, it takes time to train our learners, but we can do it. If you don't have the cards or the posters, you can make use of your body language. That is really important to use it in the classroom in a natural way. For example, Pierre, I don't have the posters, so use your hands. Negative or question, right? And in this way, we make pronunciation less monotonous in a more dynamic and active way. And notice something, your students are creating the new sentences with negative, with questions, or changing the people or adjectives. So they are producing and they finally understand how to use the language. Let's check the next tip. The next tip is related to vocabulary. So imagine you have to teach this in your classroom. This is vocabulary related to personality. For example, interesting, intelligent, kind, talkative, friendly, and funny. I have a question for you now. What will you teach first, the meaning of the adjectives or the pronunciation? Because we've mentioned that the two are important. But what will you teach first? The meaning of the adjectives or how to pronounce them? If you decided that meaning is first, you are right. Clarify the meaning of the words before you teach pronunciation. Our students need to know the meaning before they know how to pronounce the words. So give students time and opportunities to understand the meaning of new words before focusing on pronunciation. How can you clarify meaning? With pictures, with examples, or situations, right? And then when meaning is clear and you taught the meaning of the words, include some questions to check understanding. Sometimes students are shy or afraid of asking questions. So if you say, did you understand? Probably they reply, yes. But how do you know they understood? So you can ask questions. So let's imagine that you want to clarify this adjective. This is talkative. So what are those questions you can ask to clarify understanding of meaning? Does she speak a lot or little? Is she quiet? Does she like having conversations with people? Notice, these questions are brief and clear, and the answers are yes or no. Obviously, you need to prepare these questions in advance. We cannot improvise them in our classrooms. And question, did I include the word talkative in my questions? Not really. So these are important things to consider when preparing CCQs or concept checking questions. They should be brief, as you can see. Is she quiet, clear, prepare in advance, and I'm not including the word I'm teaching or clarifying. So for example, if this is talkative, does she speak a lot or little? Students reply, a lot. Is she quiet? No, because it's the opposite. Does she like having conversations with people? Yes. Good. So in this way, we can confirm understanding of meaning. Now, look at the questions. Do you think I created the questions? Let me tell you that I didn't create the questions. I made use of artificial intelligence. This is what I ask the chatbot to create. I use ChatGPT. And of course, we can use AI to spice up our lessons and make them more engaging. Let's read together. Act as a school teacher working with primary school learners aged 10 years old who struggle with understanding new vocabulary. Create CCQs to check shy and popular. These are the two words I want to check. Make sure the CCQs are brief and don't include the words. Write 3 questions per word. So this is my prompt. I'm sure you notice there are different colors, and this is because each color represents or shows an important part of the prompt. Let's look at it. Here we have the prompt and the colors, and we have the parts. Prompting correctly is really important. So the first is the green part, the role. Act as a school teacher working with primary school learners, with secondary school learners. The red is the context. What is the context? Their age, the grade, or the problems they can have. For example, how old are my students? 10 years old. Is there a problem? They struggle with understanding new vocabulary. And what about the purple part? Create CCQs to check shy and popular. This is the specific task. What I want the AI tool to create. So create CCQs to check these two words. The orange and the pink are limitations to the outcome. Remember, it's important to include some limitations in order to have the result we expect. Make sure the CCQs are brief and don't include the words. Of course, because we mentioned that they should be brief, we should avoid including the words. So these are characteristics of what you want to see. And the pink, it has to do with the number, right? 3 questions. It could be the number of formats. Remember that we can use AI to create multiple choice or true false tasks. So it's important to include something related to the number of questions and the format. Good? So these are the parts, important parts when we create prompts. Let's see if we remember them. What about the green part? What is it? Act as a school teacher working with primary school learners. Role. Aged 10 years old who struggle with understanding new vocabulary. Context. What is the purple part? The specific task. And 2 limitations. Remember, characteristics, if you want to see, all right, and the number or format of the tasks you are creating. Good. So now it's time for a hands-on activity. What are you going to do? You're going to think of a vocabulary topic you like. For example, family, places in the city, or personality. And you have to choose two words you find difficult to explain. Two words. And use the prompt to create effective CCQs. This is the prompt, right? You can take a picture and write it on your favorite chatbot. It could be ChatGPT, Copilot, the one you like. I suggest ChatGPT so you can try it and practice the prompt. Now you can do this later or maybe the weekend when you have time, but remember it's important to try the prompts. Here, as this is related to vocabulary, the only things you have to change are the words you want to check, shy and popular, think of others, and things related to the context. What's your student's age? What are the problems they have? The number of questions you want to get. And there is something really important. When you see the outcome, you need to filter. You need to analyze it and make decisions. Because remember, you are the teachers who know the groups and you know what your students can understand or what other things are difficult for them, right? So I'm confident you'll try it later or when you have free time. So what do you think about the next statement? Teachers can use technology for speaking. Do you agree? Right, of course, this is yes. Look at this badge. Look at this badge. I created this badge to introduce this statement and ask you to reflect on the question, if you agree or disagree. These badges can be used in our classrooms to make our students speak, to make them discuss. How can we create them? On ClassTools.net. If you are familiar with this webpage, good for you. If not, this is the opportunity. ClassTools.net can help us create these images. These are badges where we can put texts and a picture in the middle to engage our learners. Let's see the steps. So, what is the first step? You have to go to the webpage www.classtools.net and find the badge generator. This is what you need to find. The second step is to change the text for the bottom and the top lines. You have the options here. Then you choose your favorite background and colors. For example, now, if you see this, it's black and brown, but you have different colors. You have to upload the image you want to use to engage your students. Good. Remember, I used people speaking. It could be related to sports, to personality, to places in the city, for example. And then you download it and put it on PowerPoint or Word. It is ready to be used and it's up to you. As you can see, you can create these badges following these steps. And honestly, this is quick and students like it. Would you like to try it? Right? So let's create it together. Fine? So what is the first step? I hope you can remember it. What is it? Yeah, we have to go to the ClassTools.net webpage. All right, so let's do that. I'll share screen now. Okay, and then we have to look for BatchMaker. Here, as you can see, this is free. And here is where we can change the pictures, the texts, and the colors. Let's try it. Good. For example, let's imagine we want to talk about sports. Yeah, it could be. What's, sorry, your favorite sport? And I can add another question here. How often do you play it? Texts modify. The next step, we can change the colors. I'll try red and I'll try blue. And what is something extra that I need? We need to change the image. Let's see. You click on Seleccionar Archivo and you choose the picture you like. For example, I'm using this one for sports. You can drag it, you can make it bigger or smaller using this option, Scale Image. And when you feel comfortable with your creation, you click on Download Image. And you'll see that you have it here immediately. How much time did it take? No longer than 3 minutes, I would say. So you can create many and ask your students to speak and to practice using them, right? For example, I'll show you now others that I created. Look at it. This time, I'm using these badges to introduce vocabulary. Places in the city, right? Bakery, and geographical features, river. I also included a sentence at the bottom line. I buy bread at the bakery every day, or this river is really long. Why do you think I included the sentences here? It is important to expose our students to the words at sentence level so they can see how they can use them when creating the sentences. And also, then you can make them practice pronunciation. Yeah? So we can use these badges to teach vocabulary, to make them speak, or for them to create conversations. Imagine it's a role play. You can introduce the roles by using these badges. Fine? So now this webinar is coming to an end, but let's check the things we've revisited today. Look at this statement. We should teach pronunciation first, and then we check meaning. Do you think this is true or false? We should teach pronunciation first, then we check meaning. Choral repetition is one way to help students practice pronunciation. I'll show you 3 more and individually make your decisions true or false. This is number 3. This is number 4. And this is the last one. So let's check together. We should teach pronunciation first, then we check meaning. Of course, false. First meaning and then pronunciation. Good. Number 2, choral repetition is one way to help students practice pronunciation. Of course, choral repetition is a good way to help our students practice pronunciation. But today we mentioned that it's important to vary. Remember, we use symbols, negative, questions, or the substitution drilling when you show them other adjectives, other people, other verbs. Variety is key. So try new strategies, and don't forget to train your students. It'll take time, but you'll see the outcome. Number 3, prompting AI chatbots correctly is not important. I cannot hear you now, but I'm sure you said this is false. It is really important to prompt AI correctly to filter the outcome, the result we get, and to remember the elements. Do you remember them? Role, context, specific task, some limitations, characteristics, the number of questions or sentences, and the format. Well done. Number 4, students need to be trained in how to use useful language in the classroom. True or false? True. Remember that we use our posters and we put them around the classroom. What page are we on? Can I answer? But we need to train them and challenge them a bit. For example, when they have to complete them together, and we also need to give them phrases to compare and expressions to discuss questions and talk about their personal information and express their opinions. Sometimes they have many things to say, but they don't know how to start. So it's important to give them expressions. And finally, ICQs and CCQs are the same. Ready? False. We have ICQs, instruction checking questions, and we have CCQs, concept checking questions. ICQs to check understanding of instructions, and CCQs to check understanding of meaning. For example, talkative. Is she quiet? Does she speak a lot or little? Does she like having conversations with people? CCQs. Now, on a piece of paper, write 3 sentences about your family. You have 2 minutes and describe their personality. Work individually. Imagine these are my instructions, so how can I check them? By asking them ICQs. How many sentences do you have to write? Do you work in pairs, individually? Is it about your family routines or personality? Personality, they'll say. So you are checking understanding of instructions. Both are important, but they are different. All right. So finally, I hope you found this webinar useful. Perhaps it's been a good opportunity for you to refresh some ideas or concepts. Hope to see you soon. And on behalf of the Britannico, again, expressing our appreciation to you all because being here, the fact that you are watching this video now says a lot about your professional commitment and how much you want to continue helping your learners to use English. All right. So it was nice to see you. Have good lessons. Goodbye.